Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We continue with our wall-to-wall coverage of this playoff run. Whether it is a true playoff run, I think playoff run connotates you win multiple rounds, will be determined by the outcome of this series upcoming, which will debut on Monday night against Indiana Pacers. And here to talk about that series and maybe, I don't know what else we're going to talk about. Probably just that series. I don't know if there's stuff to get us off track. Is, of course, the one and only from The Athletic and Katz and Shoot, world's most famous podcast sensation on Patreon, Fred Katz. Hello, sir.
I'm 100% certain there will be a lot of stuff to get us off track.
You want to start with some Jared Allen talk?
We could talk. Hey, Cleveland won that series. Cleveland proved to all of us there's no such thing as the basketball gods.
No.
You tank into a matchup, you can win that matchup. You're good to go.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens this summer before we start saying that there's no such thing as the basketball gods. But that is a conversation for another day because we have a Knicks series to talk about. So what we're going to do on this episode, and what I'm going to try to do is weave in, because I was just reading which frankly I did not even realize you dropped until I just noticed it. I was just reading your series preview, which you did with Eric. How do you pronounce his last name? Name. Like
quite literally his last name.
There you go. Okay.
My name is Name.
With Eric Name, also of The Athletic. We'll weave in some different concepts and questions and pivot points and all that sort of stuff. But we're going to do the same thing that we did to start off the series, the last series against Philadelphia 76ers, which itself was a redo of the gimmick that we did before the Cavs series last year. And we're going to draft players from this series and see, who we think is the most important, who we think is maybe not as important, who we think is actually going to play, which itself is, I don't know if it's the major subplot, but it's certainly one of them. Before we get to any of that, I would just open by asking you, Fred, before we fully turn the page, final thoughts on the series that we just witnessed.
The Sixers series?
Yeah, that one.
Top two series I've covered in my career, I would say.
What's the other one?
2016 Western Conference Finals.
Thunder. Yep.
Thunder were up 3-1 on the 73-win Warriors, and the Warriors came back. That was the famous Klay Thompson Game 6 series.
Game 6 Klay.
That series was wild. That had a historical context to it. That was epic. That series was amazing. Just one of the best first-round series in the history of the league, to be honest. I'm looking through it, and I think there's a different vibe to the 7-game first-round series than the 5-game first-round series. You want to talk about 99 Knicks Heat. It's like 5 games just isn't the same intensity as having to win that extra one. And so I kind of think of first-round series as we know them today in that era of when it switched to 7. And you can look at some of the upsets, which have been great series, like 07 with the Warriors beating the Mavericks was a really fun series. I don't think the level of basketball in that series was as good. I don't think it was as crazy of a series. I don't think the individual games were as crazy of a series. It was more just like that was an 8 seed beating a 1 seed, and Baron Davis's Warriors, we believe, team was really fun and like super fast-paced team to watch, and it was an exciting series. Like 2015 Clippers Spurs is something that I bring up all the time as one of my favorites. 2014 OKC Memphis is insanely underrated. I don't know why no one brings it up. There were 900 games in that series that went to overtime. It was a great first-round series. It was an awesome first-round series. There have been some other ones that have been really good, but like this is right up there, and I think there's an argument to be made that it is the best non-7 game series during this era in the first round. Because normally you think of the great series and they go 7 games. And
both Celtics in
09, that's up there.
Was that 6 or 7?
That was 7.
That did go 7. Okay, I forgot.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's right up there.
I for whatever reason, you mentioned it. Clip Spurs in 15 is probably always my definition for like the best, just because obviously the Spurs won 50 games and they were still 7 seed that year, and they were coming off of like the finals where they played like the most beautiful version of the sport that I think a lot of us had seen. And that obviously won 7 games and it was great. And you felt like if the Spurs won that series, maybe they could have gone on and done whatever. But yeah, I think the fact that all but one of these games came down to the final minute, it probably is. And I mean, what could have elevated it? I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. If the Sixers came back and won that freaking game 6, which they had a chance to do, and in the fashion that they would have done it after overcoming not only a 22-point deficit, but then an 8-point deficit in the final 3 minutes, almost regardless of what would have happened in game 7, assuming game 7 was a close game, which it would have been, I think that maybe would have put it into like conversation for the best first round series ever, but it's up there. I think it's definitely has to be up there.
Look, here's the thing. I know some Knicks fans were peeved with Nick Nurse at the end of the series saying could have gone either way. I had absolutely no problem with him saying that. I think he's totally 100% correct. It could have gone either way. Every single game could have gone either way. Yeah. It was even the game that the Sixers, the only double-digit game, could have gone either way because Joel Embiid could have been ejected for what wasn't a flagrant 2, but could have been a flagrant 2. Like every single game could have gone either way because of like one play.
Maybe Mitch doesn't leave the game. Maybe if Joel Embiid doesn't pull his leg down, maybe Mitch stays in the game.
Sure, totally. Maybe Joel Embiid doesn't go off to the degree that he did in the second half because Mitchell Robinson does a good job on him. Yeah. I mean, it was an unbelievable series. And I really do think Spurs Clippers is the most similar to it. I agree with you. That's my favorite one. And you got at it where it's like, that's the one where you're like, you felt like you were watching two teams that like could win a title. And I know the Clippers ended up blowing a 3-1 lead to Houston in the next round. But that's one of the most talented non-championship teams ever assembled. Not maybe one of the best, but one of the most talented.
That Clippers team?
And that Clippers team, when Blake Griffin is going off in the playoffs, and that team was like 6.5 players, but that starting 5.
Yeah.
Don't forget, like DeAndre Jordan was first team All-NBA.
Oh my God.
That was a weak time for centers, but DeAndre Jordan's first team All-NBA. Blake Griffin is coming off of a season in which 2014, he finishes 3rd in MVP voting. And then the next year, he's kind of hurt a little bit during the regular season. His body is kind of starting to deteriorate, but then he annihilates the Spurs during that first round series. He averaged like 24, 12, and 6 in that series when 24, 12, and 6 was like a big deal. When 6 assists for a big man was like, holy crap, this is a big man averaging 6 assists. And we didn't have like Jokic and Sabonis and all that kind of stuff. That was a really good team. That was Redick just pinballing around screen after screen, and Chris Paul being prime Chris Paul. And that's Jamal Crawford winning 6th man of the year every year. That's a good team. Matt Barnes locking guys down on the wings like that. That was a really talented team. And the Clippers beating the Spurs on a game 7 game winner, by the way. Like it wasn't just like it went 7. Like it was a Chris Paul game winner with 1 second left or whatever it was. It was the Clippers beating the Spurs felt at the time almost like a changing of the guard.
Yeah. Sort
of loss where it was like, okay, this is it. This is it for the Clippers. They're coming up and the Spurs just lost and we'll see what happens. And the Spurs win 67 games the next year, but then lose in the second round. But it felt meaningful.
Yeah, it did.
And in the same way that this one does, in that like it felt like whoever won this series was going to go to the conference finals.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that like the Knicks winning this is like proof of concept or whatever. Like, I don't know. we'll see what happens in the next series. We'll see what happens the rest of the playoffs. It was nice for me as someone who waves the pom-poms about this team to have all of the flowery language that I've been spouting for the last 3 months kind of come to fruition, as it were, with like all of the stuff we always say about toughness and grit and yada, yada, yada. It's like, okay, that's why they won. Like they had all of that stuff. And they had Jaylen Brunson, who we'll talk about shortly. And yet, for like that Clippers Spurs series, like you could argue those were two of the top 5 or 6 teams. You could argue these are two of the top 6, 7 teams in the playoffs, maybe, whatever. I don't know. We'll see how some of these teams do in the second round. And yet, and this is a transition to our little draft here, the Knicks are I don't know if you've heard this, Fred. The Knicks are playing shorthanded. Have you heard? Has this been something that you've reported on at all? I don't know if I haven't read all your stuff.
The Knicks are exclusively shorthanded.
Exclusively
shorthanded. They are only shorthanded. They only know
they can't be long-handed.
Yeah, they can't even wear long sleeve shirts.
No, they can't,
because they just go all the way past their wrists, and they just their hands are so damn short they can't even do it. They have to wear t-shirts, and their tank tops look like long sleeve shirts when they wear them because they are so
like T-Rex
short.
arms. There you go.
Yes, not even T-Rexes are jealous of how short their arms are. In the T-Rex community, it's actually good to have shorter arms. It's a big societal thing. They grew up in a different culture than we did, and it's great to have shorter arms. And they are as short-handed as it gets. You know what they are? They have a negative wingspan. That's what they have. They're like, if they were in the draft, Chad Ford would be like, I'm out on these Knicks.
Tyler Hansbrough rings a bell. Did he have a negative wingspan?
Tyler Hansbrough. Well, he's short Hansbrough now.
See what you did there. That was good. Yeah. So like,
we're a disaster together.
We really are. It's not good. I don't know how much I want or how much it is responsible to like continue with the rah-rah of like, yeah, this next team, like they're capable of anything, because you as a person who exists in the world and you know what it is to be tired and beyond tired and then beyond tired. It's like you think like they can't, like it has to end at some point. And yet I don't know, but we'll get into that now. So the rules for our draft, if in case it's the first one of these you've heard, is we are drafting the players that we think will have the most significant impact in this series. And we are drafting players based on things as they are, not as we wish them to be, or as, you know, Pacers fans may wish them to be, or in like
the Dean Wade provision.
Dean Wade did not contribute to this Cavs 7-game win because he's done for the year, I think, unfortunately. No, but like, so if a guy's hurt, we're gonna draft the version of the player that we think will exist over the next 4 to 7 games, and that's going to be, I would imagine, that will be relevant pretty close to the top of this draft. I don't think there's anything else I missed. I think that basically covers it, right? And we go back and forth, not a snake draft. Andrew, which amongst us should pick first?
Would you like to do a fun little game of high card draw in order to decide said draft order, John Macri?
I don't know. Are you up for it, Fred?
I've never been so up for anything in my entire life.
You're even more up for it than the Cavs were up for Game 7 at the start of the game.
I'm even more up for it than I am whenever I get so the way that being a pool reporter works, the league will send you, like the referee pool reporters. Yeah. They actually assign a pool reporter to every game before, and they'll text a reporter in advance. Like the league office will be like, "Are you down to be the pool reporter in case you need one before a game?" And they'll just rotate through reporters. And whenever I get it, I respond with a very, very excitable GIF of somebody doing some pool activity. And I'll tell you this, I am more down for high card draw than I am to be the pool reporter.
It's great.
You're a one of one, Fred Katz.
I'm exclusively a disaster, is what I am.
My wish for this series, I have one wish for the other than the Knicks winning. My one wish for the series is that there is not some pivotal pool report that everybody is waiting on bated breath about what some referee says about some bullshit.
Same.
I know you mean that. Okay.
Because you know what's the worst? Having to be the pool reporter and then not getting to go to your game, your team's post game crap.
No,
because you got to go worry about the refs.
Yeah,
and it's like the whole thing is such a pain.
No, let's hope it's not the case. All right, Andrew, whose card first?
John, age before beauty. Your card is a Jack of Hearts. Okay, Fred
I don't know what pick
Katz.
I want.
Fred Katz of Katz and Shoot. Your card is a 4.
Okay.
John, you have the first pick. We go back and forth, pick 'em style. John, the board is yours.
All right, I'll spoil my where'd Fred go? Fred went away for.
I'm here.
I know you're here, but you went away for a second on the YouTube.
I hit the wrong button, Fred. What I did was this. So not only did you lose the draft, but you lost the pod too, unfortunately.
I honestly think, and I recognize that for probably most people, this is an audio medium, so this will make no sense. But Andrew is eliminating my video from the podcast feed. And I will say, I think it could be a pretty great podcast if you just eliminate my video, but keep my audio and just have the camera on John the whole time. And
I would be shorthanded. The podcast would be shorthanded, as it were.
You would. I'm shocked. I mean, look, I'll tell you what, the Knicks can't play high card draw because they can't reach the deck of cards.
We've gotten. This is like a road that looked interesting. Like, oh, maybe there's some nice, like a hike or something that we could go on. It looks like some nice foliage, and we've gone down the road, and it is just poison ivy down the road. That's all that there is.
Well, John, the board is yours.
We couldn't steer our way down it because we couldn't reach the steering wheel.
Couldn't reach the steering wheel. For short leg too, we couldn't even reach the brake. Okay, we're done. So I'm gonna take Jaylen Brunson. So Jaylen Brunson, as of right now, according to Basketball Reference, has a 36.8 usage rate, which leads the playoffs. Although I actually wonder if Donovan Mitchell may have snuck past him today. So I did a little search on Basketball Reference, which this particular search showed results since 1967. And there have been only 18 postseasons in which a guard made it to at least the end of the second round. I did a search of at least 8 games, and while carrying at least a usage rate of 35 and playing over 30 minutes a night. So none of these guys that like play 5 minutes and take all their team shots in those 5 minutes. As will surprise no one, the first 8 instances of this happening were by a guy named Michael Jordan. Since then, here are the guys that have done it. And again, this is guards, 30 minutes a night, at least the 35 usage rate through at least 2 rounds. Allen Iverson did it twice. Derrick Rose did it once. Kobe Bryant did it once. James Harden did it 3 times. Trae Young did it once. Donovan Mitchell did it once. And then Luka Doncic did it once. So if we'll see if Brunson maintains the usage rate that is this high, I suspect he will. But he has a chance to join that group. Now, obviously, not now. Actually, on the bright side, a fair number of those guys advanced to the conference finals. So the reason I looked it up is because I was curious. Like, can he possibly keep this up? And can the Knicks continue to succeed with him keeping this up? And so that's going to be my question to you, Fred. Like, do you think Jaylen Brunson can basically continue to do what he's been doing, or does he need to?
Yes, absolutely. He can keep doing it. Certainly against Indiana. I mean, I think Indiana is actually a better defensive team than people give them credit for. They have some good individual defenders. TJ McConnell is really good. I think Nesmith is one of the more underrated role players in the league. He is a really, really good player.
Great
contract. He just got way better this summer. I remember watching him in the preseason and I was like, holy crap. Like Aaron Nesmith got good. We had this on the Athletic NBA show because I do the Thursday Athletic NBA show every week. We had a running joke throughout the entire season about my obsession with the Pacers because I picked them at the beginning of the year to finish with a better record than the Heat. And I just got eviscerated on the podcast.
You.
I picked them to finish 7th or 6th with 47 wins and with a better record than the Heat. And Heat Twitter eviscerated me. And it's exactly what happened. And I was thrilled to go back and read all those tweets about Heat Twitter eviscerating me because, man, just totally correct. And I remember at the beginning of the years, I'm going on my whole spiel about how I think this is going to be a top 5 offense this year. Part of the thing I was talking about was like Aaron Nesmith just showed up right at the preseason. I'm like, damn, this is just a different guy. He's got a 6'10" wingspan and he's using it really well. He's physical defensively. He's draining spot up threes. He's really good from the corners. Dude is just a really good player. And they have other solid defenders. Nembhard is a solid defender. They've traded for Siakam now, who's obviously a very good defender when he's going at his best. And when Siakam's on the floor, they're pretty good defensively. And their starting lineup during the regular season with Siakam was good defensively. I will add, though, one thing they don't really have beyond Nesmith is a lot of length to put on Brunson. Like TJ McConnell is just, what did Josh Hart call him? An annoying little shit.
You were there, not me.
Yeah, he called him an annoying little shit, Josh Hart. Now, I will say I agree with Josh Hart about TJ McConnell that he's an annoying little shit. And I say that in the most complimentary way it can be said. If he were on the Knicks fans would just be totally and utterly obsessed with him.
I love him. I've always liked him.
He's just a good player, a hell of a defender. He's awesome in passing lanes. He is awesome guarding the ball. He is an absolute pain in the ass to guard. He can do some stuff to you offensively. He can get out in transition. He's not a bad passer.
Deuce in the one game. Yeah.
He'll pull up from like 12 feet and hit these little off balance fadeaways where you're like, what are you doing? And why is it always going in? He really is an annoying little shit in the best way you can possibly be one. He's made a whole career out of it and deservingly so. He's a hell of a player. That being said, Brunson struggles at his most against length. Like you put incredible defensive guards on him and we've seen him torch them. Drew Holiday might be the greatest defensive guard of his entire generation. And Brunson has torched him. Alex Caruso might be the best defensive guard in the entire league. And we just watched Brunson drop 45 on him on a night when Caruso was all over him. Because Brunson is so good at creating just enough space that if you don't have the length to make up for it, he'll put up shots. And it's really difficult to affect what he does. He's going to kind of do what he does. He's going to go to the places that he wants to go. And I just see him operating really well against this Pacers defense. Now, I think it'll be more difficult for him than it would have been against Milwaukee. I think if they were playing Milwaukee, even with Giannis, we could be seeing some sort of insane scoring series from Jaylen Brunson. But I don't think Indiana is as well equipped to guard Brunson as Philly was. If Philly did as good of a job on Brunson as I think we've seen any team do all season, and he still dropped 4 straight games of 39 plus points.
I think my biggest fear is that when he gets to the fourth quarter, when Brunson's going to be tired because he's playing the minutes that he's playing, they're going to start switching. Assuming Brunson brings the screen up or utilizes the screen. Well, and then that gets into who is Siakam going to be guarding again, all the tangled webs of this series. Basically, like the Pacers are going to welcome that switch and be like, all right, we'll now try to get a shot over or around or through this guy. And Siakam, like you said, Siakam could defend. So that's kind of my fear at this point, but we'll see what transpires.
They very well might switch on that. What I think you're going to see Brunson do though
is
I think you're going to see a lot of pick and rolls at Miles Turner. Now, Miles Turner is a good defensive center, and he's a very good rim protector, but he's at his best when he's in a drop. And we can see Brunson carve guys up with that. And what's going to be really important is the quality of screens from Isaiah Hartenstein. Because if Hartenstein is hitting Brunson's guy, whoever it is, Nesmith, Nembhard, I'm sure they're going to throw all these guys at him. throughout the series. I'm sure McConnell will guard him at points. I'm sure Neesmith will guard him at points. I'm sure Nembhard will guard him at points. I'm sure Siakam will at the very least switch on to him at points. Like whoever it is that Hartenstein is screening, he's going to have to square up those dudes, because if he gets a little bit of separation, it's going to force Turner to step up. And their backside defense is not necessarily strong enough to sustain that. That's when Hart's going to be open for cuts. And that's when maybe Turner is not able to step up and Brunson has a 12-footer, or that's when Brunson might be able to get to the rim. I think there are ways they're going to be able to get around this. I also think another thing that they're going to try to do is I think they're going to try to run, like really make an effort to run off of misses and turnovers. Okay. And who cares if you score on fast breaks? But if you can get the Pacers mismatched, a lot of the Pacers defense is in this situation. And this is obviously true for any defense, but I think it's especially true for Indiana. A lot of the Pacers' defensive success against them is going to come on, are they able to get their matchups? And the Pacers are not very good defensively, but they play hard.
Yeah.
It's not like they just give up defensively. They're not the Hawks. Like they play hard. They're just not overloaded with they're just not overloaded with defensive personnel at every single position. And if you can get a couple of mismatches because you just beat them down the floor, and sometimes you can't. Part of the reason why I think they've been better in the second half of the season defensively is because they've been good in defensive transition. They get back hard. They play really, really, really hard. They're really athletic.
They remade their team. Like no more Buddy Hield, like Bruce Bound is, he's a good defender, but I don't know this version of their team. And look, we'll talk about Obi soon, I'm sure, but like their apologies to all the Obi stands. They're a better defensive team without Obi in the starting lineup than they were with him. It's one of the little chess matches. Just to go back to the point about the screening is like, okay, well, do they stick Siakam on Hartenstein to try to welcome that switch? And then if that's the case, is that going to open up opportunities for Hartenstein to beast on the offensive glass, which obviously will play a role in the series because it plays a role in everything the Knicks do. And if they don't have that matchup, well, then I guess, I know. I mean, if they do have that matchup, who is Turner guarding? That's the other part of it. So like if Turner's guarding, is Turner guarding Josh Hart? Is Turner guarding OG Anunoby? Like I'm pretty confident in those guys' ability to screen for Brunson. But we'll see. All right, we're a half an hour into this, and we've made one pick. You have to go.
Okay, I'm gonna go for a little curveball.
Siakam,
a Wally Zerbiak approved curveball. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's phenomenal. He's one of my favorite players in the league to watch. Yeah. But I'm gonna go Siakam.
That's good. I like it.
The thing that separates it from me is I think a big part of the Knicks offense also is going to be, we saw them running pick and rolls and trying to get switches onto Maxey and Tobias Harris. And those guys are not as good targets as Tyrese Halliburton is. Like when we saw Milwaukee's offense revving, a lot of it was when they were running pick and rolls at Halliburton and just going right at him.
I was going to ask you this. Do you think it's a bigger soft spot than anything Philly had to offer?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And that kind of is the separator for me. I think the Knicks are going to pick at that. And it's really going to come down to like, will Halliburton be able to hold his own in those moments? The Knicks picked at Maxey, and Maxey freaking held his own. I think while Tyrese Maxey is not looked at as a defender, I'm like, I feel like that guy is going to become one. Like that guy fights.
Oh, he was up for it.
Yeah, like talk about not backing down from the challenge on both sides. Like he fought and did a really good job on basically throughout the series on Brunson defensively, I thought. And I came away from that series being like, I know Tyrese Maxey is a flawed defender right now, and I know he's not all the way there. He's 23 years old. He's fighting this hard in a playoff series against this good of a player. Like you hear everything about his work ethic, his competitive spirit. Now it's just off the charts. I'm like, I feel like that guy just someone with that personality, with that sort of fight, and with that ability, you just figure it out. And eventually you figure it out. He's 23. And I'm really interested to see what happens with Halliburton in that situation, because Halliburton has the length and he has the smarts to be good enough defensively. And I'm really curious to see how that's going to go. With Siakam, he had a wonderful first couple of games against Milwaukee. What happened with
36
Milwaukee?
and 37. Yeah.
And that was with Milwaukee cross-matching. So Brook Lopez is on him at the beginning of that series, and then they switch off Brook Lopez onto him, and he doesn't do as much in the final few games of that series. The Knicks are not going to cross-match. I think the other part of it that I'm really curious about is my guess is that OG Anunoby is going to start the series on Halliburton. That's my guess.
You're not going out on a limb there.
I'm not going out on the limb, but I'm just saying it's my guess because I'm not going to like Tibbs hasn't told me.
No, I don't mean that. I just mean
one thing.
We know Tibbs. Like we know he's going to he's going to start out in the cookie cutter, and then he'll divert from the cookie cutter.
Right. And so I think he's going to start there. And if he does a really good job on Halliburton, then all of a sudden there is this massive burden placed on Siakam. And Siakam's had big playoff moments, man. Like he is just a good two-way player. Their transition offense is so important. And he is a massive part of that. People associate it with Halliburton because of how they were running at the beginning of the year and how fast they played and all that. But man, like we want to talk about Josh Hart defensive rebounds and just full court go the other way. That's like the Siakam jam. And he's become an all-star doing that kind of stuff. Like he is a really unbelievably important player for them. And if he can be the second best player in this series, then I think the Knicks should absolutely be the favorites, but I don't think it's like this cakewalk roll over them sort of thing. Like Siakam is an incredible talent and has had massive playoff moments.
I'm afraid of Siakam. Maybe not afraid of Siakam. I respect the hell out of Siakam. I think.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing, John?
Sure. Yeah.
So part of the reason why I bring up my head's all over the place. Part of the reason why I bring up Anunoby guarding Halliburton is not just because like, okay, maybe Anunoby does a good job kind of making Halliburton 90% of Halliburton. It's also because I think Siakam is going to have a nice size advantage on whomever is guarding him. And the Knicks can get physical with him. Josh Hart can get physical with him, but Siakam's going to have a nice size advantage. And if he's able to get the ball on the run, one of the things you have to watch out for with the Pacers, they are trying to think, making sure I'm correct on this. Yeah, I think they're the best screening team in the Eastern Conference. They are a fantastic screening team because people hear screens and they're not just like, and they think, oh, they just lay people out. Like you hear incredible screener and you think of, I don't know, Steven Adams just decking a dude. But there are other ways to be an amazing screener. And one of the things that they are incredible at, and this is something that Tibbs touched on a little bit, so I know he is focused on it because he just kind of offered it up. And it's something that I watch a lot. They do it with Miles Turner. They do it with Siakam. They're amazing at slipping screens. Part of the reason they play so fast. Slipping a screen, for those who don't know, is when before you even set the screen, you notice the coverage that the defense is going to run, and you realize it's better for you to just start to roll to the basket or pop to wherever you're going to go before you even lay the screen, and it throws the timing with the defense off and can just open you up early. They're so good at slipping screens. They got the Bucks with that a million times. Siakam is really good at that too. And if you can get him the ball on the move, and whoever is guarding him or whoever is meeting him in the rim or whoever is meeting him on the perimeter is somebody who he's got 4 inches on, and Siakam is long and he's big and he's strong. That's just not an easy assignment. It's doable. Josh Hart's a good defender. Dante DiVincenzo's a good defender. It's doable, and Hartenstein's going to be there to meet him at the rim, or Mitchell Robinson or whatever. But he can I mean, look at what happened against the Knicks. It was a different roster. Look what happened against the Knicks when he went for, how many did he have when he went off on them?
Oh, 50 something. It was a career high.
50 something points last year. And Quentin Grimes is guarding him for part of it. And Grimes is fighting him hard, but it's like Grimes is the same size as Josh Hart. Like he can get comfortable when he's got some smaller guys on him. So I could see him having a really good series.
The fear is that if the Knicks go traditional and they put their 5, whoever it is at the time, on Turner, like, you may feel comfortable with Turner shooting a certain amount. They're not just going to let Turner have all the time in the world. Like, they're going to have their center is going to pay attention to Turner. Like, they're going to try to honor what Turner brings to the table as a shooter. So if you're talking about, then your backline defense, if it's OG on Siakam, well, then he's obviously not your backline. And then your center is paying attention to Miles Turner. Then, like you just said, all of a sudden your backline is 6'4" Josh Hart, or it's 6'4" or 6'3", however the hell tall Dante DiVincenzo is. And it's, or to say nothing of Jaylen Brunson or like Deuce McBride or something like that could be an issue. So their defensive rotation is going to have to be on point. Just to be clear, though, you do think OG will start on Siakam and then he'll mix it up from there, right?
No, I think OG is going to start on Halliburton.
Oh, see, I disagree with you.
Yeah, I think that's why I said my guess is he's going to start on Halliburton.
One of us will be right. I think so.
Maybe it was more out there than you thought.
It obviously is, because I think Tibbs is going to start in like the base. Like, okay, we're going to put our 4 on their 4. We're going to put our 5 on their 5. We're going to put so on and so forth. With the
maybe, Hartenstein's going to guard Turner for sure. That's the thing that he never deviates from. But look, OG started on Maxey right off the bat.
He did do that. So my thinking is, and here's why I would like that, just to be clear. And I'll take Halliburton, just because it's Tyrese Halliburton. Even I don't know what percentage of himself he is right now. Is he 65% of himself? Is he 75% of himself? Is he 80% of himself? Whatever it is. I think he's going to have.
He's shorthanded.
He's shorthanded. I think he's going to have an impact because he's still such an incredible passer. The shooting is obviously the question mark. He shot under 30% from 3, not only in the Bucks series, but he's been under 30% on pull-ups since his injury, which is now a period of time that's going on 3 months. So that's not great. And how the Knicks navigate screens involving Halliburton, is going to be very interesting. How much they switch is going to be very interesting. Obviously, the Bucks switched a lot. But with OG, so for as much as Halliburton may be compromised, it's kind of, for me, the inverse of the conversation about the last series. Because the last series, ultimately, they moved OG off of Maxey because they're like, you know what? We are wasting our best defender. Because even if we have him on this guy is still going to get his because of the qualities that Tyrese Maxey brings, which you just talked about. He's so fast. Like, OG's not going to just like eliminate him. If you can eliminate Tyrese Halliburton, and again, I don't know that he can, but if you could just take that piece off the chessboard and you're like, all right, we'll deal with everything else. We'll deal with Turner's threes. We'll deal with Siakam, do whatever Siakam does. We'll deal with, Nesmith and Nembhard, like walking into their little mid-rangers. But if we could just take Halliburton essentially out of the series, for the most part, is that worth it? Is that worth utilizing OG for that? And maybe you're right, and maybe it is. But then I think about, okay, well, who's going to Siakam? If, as you say, they're going to put the 5 on Turner to start, which I agree with you, I think they will. So then it's, okay, Josh Hart, you ready for this? Which Tibbs has faith in Josh Hart to do every other goddamn thing. Why wouldn't he have faith in Josh Hart to do this? But I don't know.
I'll tell you this. Tibbs, I can tell you this.
What?
Tibbs is going to have absolutely no problem with Josh Hart guarding anyone. Anyone.
They just signed Shaq, Josh.
Yep. Tibbs will be like, okay. Yeah, Josh,
he's not going to give a shit. He doesn't care. Okay.
He could not. He thinks Josh Hart can guard everybody.
That's great. That's phenomenal.
Josh Hart is not going to sub out. He's just going to increasingly have to guard more and more difficult assignments. Josh Hart is becoming to Tibbs what
Luol Deng.
What I was going to say what Jimmy Butler was if Jimmy Butler never actually if Jimmy Butler became what he was supposed to become. Yeah. Not if he became all-star Jimmy Butler. Like, remember what Jimmy Butler was in his second year? And we were like, damn, Jimmy Butler, number 30 pick. He's really become a good role player, even though he's not really a shooter and he's defending. And look at how hard he plays. Like, if he just was that, and that's what everybody thought he was going to be, and Tibbs was obsessed with Jimmy Butler then, you know, that's kind of what Josh Hart has become at this point. He thinks he can guard anybody.
We'll see. I
would put Anunoby on Tyrese Halliburton. And for what it's worth, I think part of the reason that they moved Anunoby off of Maxey wasn't just like, okay, he's going to get his. I think it was also that Maxey is so damn fast and Anunoby just wasn't really staying in front of him. And so one way that you can guard him with Anunoby is by saying, you know what? You're going to be the low man. So instead of starting on him, they basically said, whoever starts on him is not going to finish on him because nobody's quick enough. He's going to blow by him. So if you're going to start on him, So if a defender is going to start on him and the low man or the help defender or whatever it is going to finish on him, we'd rather OG finishing on him than starting on him. So let's have him be the low man. How many plays were there in the final 2 games of that series where Maxey gets all the way to the rim, or 3 games of that series where Maxey gets to the rim and Anunoby just meets him and contests a shot and has a great contest?
Yep.
You know? Yep. Happened so many times, not just with Maxey, but with a number of guys. Totally. And I think that was a big part of it too. Halliburton plays a different he just has a very different cadence than Maxey. I went back and I watched Anunoby guarding Halliburton the last time they played when Anunoby was on Toronto in November and Toronto played Indiana. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is that Anunoby did a really good job. And this is when Halliburton, by the way, you mentioned how he hasn't been hitting pull-ups since he came back. The reason that's so stark is because before he had the injury, he was hitting like 40% of his pull-up threes.
He was had the third most attempts in the league, and his percentage on them pre-injury was higher than anyone else in the top 10.
That's wild. That's wild. And Anunoby was picking him up at like 32 feet and staying in front of him. And I actually asked OG about it, about like, how do you feel about picking him up that high up? What's your thought process in doing it? Hold on, I'll tell you his answer.
I love this.
He said, I'm just trying to make him uncomfortable. He's
By the way,
player.
It's your pick. Are you picking OG?
Oh yeah, I'm picking OG.
There you go. Okay.
For this reason.
Yeah.
He said, I'm just trying to make him uncomfortable. He's a great player. He can shoot from really far. So I'm just trying to pick him up and dictate which direction he goes, which I thought was really interesting. The farther out you pick him up, the more you can dictate which direction he goes. And driving Halliburton left, I think, will be pretty important during this series because he weirdly takes his step backs going right. A lot of guys like take their step backs going left when they're righties. He takes them going right. So I assume OG will try to pick him up high up, even though he's not with the pull-up shooting, and just try to make him go left based on this conversation, which I thought was a interesting answer. He said some more too. He said, now I lost my place. Here we go. He said, you don't want him to choose which direction he goes. You just force him one way and you take him from there. And I asked him how much of it had to do with him wanting to force the big to just come up really high to set the screen. He said there's a little bit of that too, but also making sure to push up against him makes him going downhill, which is what you want to do. So you kind of force him to put the ball on the floor, and if you can stay in front of him, you're good to go. So I thought he did a really good job on Halliburton in that game that I watched, and that was when Halliburton was at his absolute best. I think there is I don't know. I would put him on Halliburton and see what he's got.
Okay.
Because if you can take Halliburton out of the series, like that is the head of the snake. That dude is an outrageous, like we're not giving him enough respect. We're really talking about like how he hasn't been the same. That's
third.
True. Yeah, that's true. I'm doing like the basketball Twitter thing with like Tyrese Halliburton doesn't get enough respect. He does. But he is an outrageous passer.
Top 3 passer in the league. I mean, it's him, Luka, and
Jokic.
Luka, LeBron, Jokic, like he's in there. That conversation.
Yeah. Those are probably the top 4.
Yeah.
Outrageous passer, outrageous head of an offense. This is one of the best offenses of all time.
Even
statistically.
the best compliment you could give them is even after the Halliburton injury, they've still been the second best offense in the league over that time. You make a great point about defending him with OG. OG, I think, is the right pick here. I'm curious how much the Knicks will switch the matchup if the Pacers try to, because they'll screen. I think, I don't know. I there's a lot of different ways that they could go about it. I do think that the most interesting chess match of the series is Knicks defense, Pacers offense. I think where the Knicks will, I don't know if this makes any sense. I think where the Knicks will win the series is Knicks offense against Pacers defense. I don't know. That may not logically check out, but what do I have? I have the third pick.
You have the fifth pick.
I have the fifth pick. Excuse me. My third pick, the fifth pick. I'll take the guy who was pretty important last series, and I'll take Josh Hart. I would expect he's going to have a pretty big impact on this series. Obviously, it'd be nice if the shooting keeps up. I don't know if he's going to shoot 40 whatever percent again, 43%. Maybe he doesn't need to. But he needs to do all the Josh Hart things because that's like, every conversation we come back to, it's like, well, Jaylen Brunson doesn't have a second star on this team right now. Well, guys are playing too many minutes. Like Josh Hart overcomes all of that single-handedly because he is Josh Hart, because he approximates so much of like, no, he's not a second star, obviously, but like, boy, oh boy, can he clean up a lot of the messes and fill in a lot of the gaps. And the minutes thing, the rotation thing is like, well, if you got a guy who could just go play 45, 44, 45, 46 minutes, like it's nothing. It's a nice little pivot point that you could have. So I'll take Hart.
I'm just going to move us forward because we're taking
a lot of time.
A lot of time.
Well, I think we focused on like the guys that are going to have the biggest impact on the series. But now it gets interesting.
The draft works.
You could go. I mean, a lot of directions.
I considered Dean Wade here. I considered it. But I'm going to go Isaiah Hartenstein.
Hey, look at that.
How he guards Miles Turner is going to be huge. That Halliburton, Miles Turner pick and roll is one of the most dangerous actions in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying. I don't have it written down. I wish I had it written down. I think they scored like 1.2 points per possession on the Halliburton Turner pick and pop, which is a ridiculous number for a half court offense. But I also might be wrong in that stat. But it is a ridiculous number. Whatever the number is, it's a ridiculous number. It is extremely difficult to guard, and how Hartenstein guards it is going to be tremendously important. One edit that the Knicks made, which I didn't really see mentioned anywhere in Game 6 of the Philadelphia series, was they were bringing their bigs up to the level of the screen basically every single time. And people talk about Tibbs wanting to keep Mitchell Robinson, keep Isaiah Hartenstein around the basket, and they were bringing up their bigs much higher in that game. And I'm curious to see if they transfer that to Miles Turner in order to try to kind of divert these pick and pops. Cool. I'm curious to see if they go the other way and they say, you know what, let's just take the paint away in the best way we can. And Turner is not a good enough shooter to where he is going to get red hot for an entire series. He'll have see if he can beat us. Yeah. And he did against
7 for 9. And I did the math. The rest of the series, he was about 33, 34%,
right.
Like, which you live with. Like that's fine.
Right. He's a good enough shooter to where you have to guard him, but he's not this unbelievable knockdown guy. And we've seen them try to pull off that strategy during the regular season against centers who can shoot. We've seen them try to do that against Miles Turner himself. We saw them try to do that against Chet Holmgren when they played OKC about a month ago at home. And they're like, yeah, Vucevic, same thing. Vucevic is honestly not even a very good 3-point shooter. Just
only against the Knicks this year.
Yeah, just purely on reputation. He had one really good 3-point shooting year, and it's purely on reputation. Like he's not even that good. His last name ends in itch, so everybody thinks he's an awesome shooter. But then you look at the actual shooting, and you're like, he's not this dead on 3-point shooter.
Do you know why he's not? You know why he's not? Short arms.
Short arms. Short hands. Miles Turner is a good 3-point shooter, but he's not good enough to where like you absolutely have to send your defense into a scramble. So I'm really curious to see how they defend it. Hartenstein is going to be really interesting. The other thing with Hartenstein that's going to be really interesting to follow is the Pacers are not a good defensive rebounding team. And the Knicks are going to attempt to pulverize them in every way possible. This is why I get you taking Josh Hart. This is why I get Hartenstein. Those guys are like baked into the Knicks strategy to win this series will be, can the Knicks, like, they can't just win the offensive rebounding battle.
Yeah.
They have to pulverize them. Pacers, by the way, are not a good offensive rebounding team either. They're just an even worse defensive rebounding team.
You're underselling it. I was going to say, the worst defensive rebounding team in all of basketball.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Are they? I thought they were 26 in defensive rebound rate.
Hold on. Oh, wait, no, sorry. You're right. They were 20. I think I maybe was looking at one of their lineups. Sorry. Yeah, they are 26. You're right.
Yeah, like OKC is 27, and then there's Washington, Detroit, and some other bad team. San Antonio? I don't know.
Sacramento?
No, Sacramento has Domas. He's a
no, Sacramento's very good.
Himself.
Sorry. The worst are your Washington Wizards, Toronto, Portland, Oklahoma City, and Indiana. Yeah. Okay.
So like, I think it's going to be really important with Hartenstein on the boards. It's going to be really important with Josh Hart on the boards. It's going to be really important with Dante DiVincenzo even on the boards, who is a good guard rebounder. Like, those Pacers players are going to have to look to their men and box out. I'm sure Rick Carlisle is like drilling them like crazy on that stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. The only other thing I was thinking when you were talking about Hartenstein is, like, wasn't part of the reason that Tibbs felt comfortable bringing him up to the level is because he had OG on the back line. And if OG's guarding Halliburton, well, then you're not going to have OG on the back line. So it's all the more reason for Hartenstein to hang back. So it's very different series.
It's a great point.
I have my moments. Who am I going to pick? Am I going to pick? Oh, God. I want to pick DiVincenzo, and my head's telling me I should take Turner. Turner's good. Now I'll have a bit of faith in my shooting guard who closed the Sixers series really, really strong. I could see this being a DiVincenzo series. God knows he got up shot attempts against his team during the regular season. He had 38 in one game. There's another game where he shot 1,000,000 threes and made none of them. But we'll see. Does he get a chance to guard Halliburton at all? Maybe, maybe not. So I'll go DiVincenzo.
I'm taking Turner. Yeah. I would have taken Turner over DiVincenzo. I had him higher on my list. He's a good player.
I thought about taking Turner, obviously.
He's a good player. Like, because here's the thing. Miles Turner, if you are going to sag off him, probably will win them at least one game in the series.
Which is scary.
And we've seen it happen against the Knicks. And if that dude gets hot from three, it opens everything up. Now you got to go guard him. And now Halliburton has the ability to get downhill where the big is pulled out of the lane, and Siakam has the ability to cut and they can start running. Turner's also a very good rim protector. Like,
yes,
I think the Knicks have somewhat the ability to not neutralize him, but just to make his skill set a little bit less relevant, because the Knicks just don't really care that much about getting to the rim in the half court. They're just like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pull up 8 feet short of the rim. Jaylen Brunson. Josh Hart, you're going to shoot those weird fadeaways every time you go left.
They're lovely.
9 feet every time. And it's going to hit the front of the rim and then the back of the rim and then go off the backboard and then roll into the net every time. It's never going to swish in, but somehow you're also not going to miss the shot. And that's how the Knicks play in the half court. When they get to the rim, it's off of transition usually. And it's off of Julius Randle being healthy. But ultimately, they're not that reliant on getting all the way there. Their best players aren't. So I think they can make him a little less relevant to a degree. However, you got the Hartenstein floaters too. I mean, look at what they did with Embiid with Philly. It's like Embiid is hanging around the rim, and it's just like Hartenstein floaters, Brunson pull-ups. They can neutralize that kind of stuff.
Why I didn't take Turner? Why I took DiVincenzo over Turner?
I know, you're right. However, Turner is mobile.
He is.
And he is a damn good defensive center. And he's going to win them a game at some point by getting hot from three. I have to imagine. I would expect that to happen. I would expect there to be some game where Turner hits 5 threes.
Yeah.
And they win.
I expect it too, and I hope we're both wrong.
And something I've said on this podcast before, probably numerous times, is that what makes Miles Turner so valuable is, and I don't say this to minimize my thoughts on his ability, because I think he's totally a good player. I would take him on my team, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Is that why twice on Sunday?
I don't know.
Why?
The other days are shorthanded. I don't know.
I'll take him twice on Tuesday. How about that?
That's fine.
Tuesdays when I really need a pick me up. I'm upset. It's the beginning of the week. I got 3 more weekdays left. That's why
Tuesday appreciates your support.
I'll take him twice on Tuesday. He's a good player, but part of the reason why he's as valuable as he is because his archetype is more valuable than his talent level. Like, no, he's not an all-star. No, he's not a top 3 or 4 finisher for Defensive Player of the Year. But there are very, very, very few players in the league who are legitimately very good rim protectors and can shoot well enough to where you have to guard them on the other end. And it allows the Pacers to play these 5-out lineups, or these lineups where they can have the center out and they can have a non-shooter somewhere else, and they still don't have to sacrifice rim protection there. It's incredibly important. He's a good player, and we're at the point of the draft where I'm like, dude's just freaking good. Like, I'll just take the good guy who is going to win the Pacers a game at some point.
I think these are the correct top 8. And I think the reason why the Knicks are favored in the series is because 5 of the 8 names that we've mentioned are Knicks. Now, the 5 Knicks that we have mentioned scored 113 of their 118 points in Game 6, which is perhaps going to be an issue. I could go in. I feel like there are legitimately 6 different, maybe not 6, 5. Let's go with 5 different players that I could pick right now. No, actually, sorry. No, there are 6 different players that I feel I could pick right now. The guy that I'd love to take and that I'd love to have confidence is going to make a massive impact on this series, especially in backup minutes where the Pacers do not play a traditional center, is Mitchell Robinson. And yet, I am not 100% sure that Mitch is the best backup center option in the series for the Knicks. So I don't know what I want to do there. I'm just going to take one of the Pacers' wings. I'm going to take Nesmith. I think he's solid. I think he's good. Again, I could go in any one of a half dozen directions, but I'll take Nesmith.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Just a classic plug and play, really good 3-and-D wing who's just going to drain threes. He's super physical defensively.
Yeah, he tries hard.
Super physical. 42% from 3. Just freaking good player. I like watching that guy play.
Sorry, I couldn't leave him for you.
He would have been my pick.
I know he would have. That's why I took him.
I'm going to take Mitchell Robinson.
There it is. The D train arrives on time. The D train is never shorthanded.
So the longest arms. So you mentioned this, and during the Bucks series, the Pacers are playing Siakam and Obi Toppin as their backup front court.
Yeah.
And what happens when you play Siakam and Obi Toppin as your backup front court is you are sacrificing a whole lot defensively. Yep. And this is the Tibbs dream, or I should say the Knicks fans' dream with Tibbs. This is what everybody wanted with Julius Randle. And for what it's worth, I'm not just making fun of everybody.
No, I know.
I did too. However, all the lineup data stuff that Tibbs stressed about, but it was too small of a sample size on. Have you looked at what the numbers were in the Bucks series when they played Toppin and Siakam together?
Honestly, I have not. What were they?
They played 106 possessions together. They were minus 13. They gave up 120.4 points per 100 possessions. and they were in the 0th percentile on offensive rebounding.
That's bad. That sounds bad.
They were actually in the 68th percentile in defensive rebounding. I don't think that would keep up. And I don't think the defensive rebounding, to be clear, would keep up. And that's why I'm taking Mitchell Robinson.
Okay.
Because I think it's possible that Mitchell Robinson against that lineup would get every single miss. Like, I think it's possible. I think it's possible, and I don't say this as an exaggeration, that Mitchell Robinson against the Toppin Siakam front court, I think it's possible the Knicks could get more than half of their own misses. They could legitimately have a 50% offensive rebound rate during those minutes. I really think that's on. They had a 40% one for the series against Philadelphia. I think they could have a 50% offensive rebound rate in those minutes. And if you do that, you could shoot such an unbelievably low percentage and still be like really good offensively, and totally worry about him defensively in that situation. Totally worry about maybe them getting 3-point happy, them running like crazy, because that is a good transition lineup, because Obi Toppin is a freaking monster in transition and was one of the most efficient finishers in the league this year, by the way. Yeah. Siakam's a monster in transition, and TJ McConnell loves to run, and they play Nesmith with that lineup a lot, and like they can move. That's an athletic Ben Shepherd. Like, that's an athletic group that they like to put out there, and that could be tough with a not 100% Mitch who's still dealing with the ankle. But I don't know. I'm really interested to see what happens with the offensive rebounding in that lineup.
You just pinpointed my two fears. Is okay, let's say he gets half or more than half. Well, the 40 some odd percent or 50%, whatever, that he doesn't get, the other four Knicks on the floor are going to have to be so locked in terms of transition defense. It's like to a frightening degree. That's number one. And two, every time I watch the Pacers, specifically their backups, and specifically TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin when they're on the floor, it seems like it is perpetual motion. No one's ever standing in one spot. Everybody's running the fucking all the way around, putting defenders through the ringer. I don't know if that's an environment that I am super comfortable with Mitch in his current state. I don't know if that's an environment that I'm in love with for Mitch when he's like at his best, because that's just a really tough thing to deal with. And that's, and that's why I bypass Mitch for Nesmith. But I understand your logic as well, because I had the same thought.
You're up.
Do I take the little shit? Oh, man, I don't want to. Do I take their little shit or our little Deuce is in the little shit? Well, actually, his name is Deuce, so yeah, maybe he is. I know you enjoyed that. I'll take. I can't. No, I got to do it. I'm going to take TJ. I'm going to take TJ McConnell. I mean,
what a pest.
He's just. He's a pain in the ass. And he's good. And here's a fun one. Since I looked up Halliburton's and TJ McConnell's per 36 minute stats since Halliburton's come back from injury. Look, I get Halliburton has an impact on the game that can't really be quantified in stats. McConnell's blowing him out of the water on a per minute basis, like in the last 2-3 months of the season. It's wild.
TJ McConnell's been great.
He's been awesome. He came sixth in 6 Man of the Year voting, based largely on what he's done over the last few months.
Yeah, he's been great. He got off to a really bad start this season too.
Yeah.
And he's been great. We had our TJ McConnell convo.
You're up.
I'm going to go Andrew Nembhard.
That's good.
Very underrated player. Great connector in their offense. Great extra pass guy. Solid physical defender. One thing that we're going to have to watch out for in this series is their starting lineup, which they play a ton, by the way. They just roll their starting lineup out there during the regular seasons. Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner. Plus 7.5 per 100 possessions. Those guys play really well together. And part of the reason why,
with an elite defensive rating, by the way.
Yeah, with a really good defensive rating. And part of the reason those guys play really well together is because it's kind of a team of connectors. Nembhard is a really good connector in a similar way to kind of how Josh Hart is, where he is great in the short roll. He'll set a screen, even though he's basically a second point guard in a starting lineup. He's one of those guys who is such a good mover off the ball. He's such a good cutter off the ball. They're a great cutting team in the half court. Part of the reason why their offense is so good is because they're so awesome in transition, and then they're really, really good at manufacturing transition opportunities in the half court. So Nembhard will be able to get the ball with an advantage and do just attacks, no hesitation. I think he's a good passer. I think he's a very good defensive player. You mentioned that like their starting lineup is good defensively. Like it's good. It's not easy to score.
Legitimately good. Yeah.
It is not easy to score against that group. You might be able to go off against their bench, but it's not easy to score against that group. I think Nembhard's a real part of that. I think he's going to get minutes on Jaylen Brunson. I think he's going to get minutes on Dante DiVincenzo. He's going to have important defensive assignments in this series. You know who really likes Andrew Nembhard and always has? Tibbs really likes Andrew Nembhard.
Well, but
really likes Andrew Nembhard. He's a good player.
I don't want to make this pick. Maybe, hopefully, what I am doing is reverse jinxing Deuce into having a big series. I have to go with Obi here. I think Obi's going to have some moments in the series. It's going to be painful purely because there's going to be at least one post game in the series where we are. I am just going to be inundated with comments about like, how could they let Obi Toppin go for 2 second round picks? Because he's gonna have a game. Maybe he'll have a couple of games where he has a real impact. One thing I wondered about is how much. I don't know if Tibbs would do this, but like, if Obi's on the floor, is that like a prime opportunity for Jaylen Brunson to also be on the floor so they can get that particular switch? Now, Obi has gotten better, I think, in that department since he's left the Knicks, but I would imagine that's another guy that Jaylen Brunson might feel comfortable going at. So something worth watching.
Hey, the whole reason why Toppin couldn't get more than 15 minutes a game during his time with the Knicks was because Tibbs was worried about him defending in space.
Yep.
So you have to imagine the Knicks are going to strategically make him defend in space, at least in important moments during the series.
You would,
and if they don't, then I don't really understand what's going on.
They will. Let's be confident in that. They will. Yes. All right, your pick.
I'll go Deuce McBride. Okay. I feel like he's kind of the obvious pick here. He had some great moments against Philly. He had some down moments against Philly, but he's going to have an opportunity. I know he didn't play much in the second half of Game 6, but you can't play a 6-man rotation. Even Tibbs is not going to play a 6-man rotation throughout the rest of the playoffs. Like, he is going to get real minutes, real opportunity. If he gets hot from 3, if he does a good job guarding the Pacers guards, then all of a sudden, like,
oh, well,
he's making an impact. So I think he's the obvious choice.
Yeah, I mean, look, he averaged 26 minutes a game over the first 5 games of the series and made an extraordinarily positive impact, like almost the entire time he was out there. Like, he was awesome. He gave them. If you would have said before the series, this is what you're going to get from Deuce McBride, they're like, anybody would have signed up for that. In a freaking
he won them a game.
Oh yeah, well, game 1. It was a Deuce game.
Yeah.
It was the Deuce game. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. No, it's a great pick. Like I said, I was fighting it. I hope to God I'm wrong by taking Obi over him. Okay, we could, I don't know, we'll go 1 more round, 2 more rounds. I will take here. You know what? Apologies to my cab driver friend. Fuck it. Alec Burks.
Oh yeah.
Why the hell not? What my only question about Burks, do you think I have posited when I've thought about this the last few days that I think if Burks plays, and I bet you he'll get a shot. I think, well, 1, do you think he'll get a shot? And 2, do you think his minutes come with Brunson or without Brunson?
Oh, they have to come with Brunson.
Okay, so then I guess the only question is, do you think that he will get a shot?
Yes, because someone needs to be the 8th man.
Okay.
And while I think in a vacuum, Precious is a better player.
That's not.
And the way that Precious filled in when he had to fill in during the 76ers series
Awesome.
makes him deserving of playing time. Like he deserves to play. He is good enough. He's a good enough player to be in a playoff rotation. But the fit is kind of a disaster. Not because he can't play the 4, but because he can't play the 4 next to Mitchell Robinson. You just can't play Precious and Mitchell Robinson next to each other under any circumstances during a playoff game. And it makes it really, really difficult to figure out a way to wedge him in there as an actual rotation player. So I don't know. I do think it's more likely that Alec Burks is that 8th guy than Precious or Jericho Sims or something like that. And then we see what happens. And if Burks is hijacking the offense and he's not hitting shots or he's getting roasted defensively, then you might just have to say, screw the fit, find a way to make Precious work. He's a good player and he's playing winning basketball. So just figure out a way to make the substitution patterns work so you minimize his time with Mitch. But I do think Burks maybe makes the most sense. That being said, I'm going to give the other side of this because I'm super conflicted on this. And I really, truly, genuinely have no idea what they're going to do other than the fact that like, I think they'll have an 8th guy. But Tibbs is all about, like he is all about you play because you earn it.
Yeah.
Not out of convenience.
Yeah.
You play because you earn it. If you earn it, you'll play. And then if you get your opportunity and you kill it, you'll play. And if you don't earn it,
fuck you.
Bye.
Yeah.
And Burks has only come to the Knicks and mightily struggled. And Precious received an opportunity in that Philly series and he freaking grabbed it. And I know
made a game-winning play on Embiid, blocked Embiid.
More than one. Yeah. I mean, he was incredible defensively in that game.
Oh yeah, he was awesome.
Awesome defensively. And not just defensively, on the boards he was great. His energy was great. His decision making was good. He looked composed. He looked like he belonged there. It was just a really good performance off the bench. It was like one of the better 0-point bench performances that you're gonna see. He was really a vast net positive. And quite honestly, the greatest. It's one of those examples where like the plus minus really did tell the story of his performance there. He had the highest plus minus on the Knicks during that game when he comes in, fills in for Mitch, and was tremendous. And he has earned it. But I just think from a basketball perspective, the fit is weird. But I keep coming back to like one guy earned it and one guy hasn't shown it. And so I don't know what they're going to do.
If you would figure if he gets minutes at the 4, it's going to come with Brunson, because if it doesn't come with Brunson, then they just can't score at all. You already talked about the Hardenstein part of it. So like Mitch has been coming in around sometimes it's as early as like 6 minutes. Sometimes it's more like 7-8 minutes into the first quarter. If Hardenstein, if the minutes limit thing is done, which at this point, I mean, he played how many minutes in a game this series? He played like 34, 35, something like that in one game?
Yeah. I mean, It sounds like the minutes thing is done.
Okay, whatever. Let's say you could go. So if you could bring Hardenstein back in when you bring Brunson back in, essentially in the second quarter, and you bring Precious in then to give probably Hart his first rest, right? So then you got those two with Precious, and then it's I guess DiVincenzo or you pick two of the other three. Now the interesting there, between DiVincenzo, McBride, and OG. OG, Precious, Hardenstein. That's a lot of body. Anyway, I don't know.
That's a big lineup.
That's a lot of. They're not shorthanded.
No. They're not. And you know what's crazy? Yeah. If this team were healthy, their starting lineup would be even bigger than that.
Yeah, it would. That's wild. It's true though.
Like this team feels big, right?
Yeah.
And they're missing like their brawniest offensive player. And this team feels big anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you could do that. That would require Hartenstein playing the entire second quarter.
No, I'm talking about bring him in for like 4 minutes or into the second quarter.
Oh, so you play him like 9 minutes and then you bring him in at 9 minutes to go in the second.
Pull Hardenstein 7 or so minutes into the game, 7.5 minutes into the game, whatever.
And you play Hart the first 15 minutes of the game, which Tibbs
15, 16. He's done routinely. Like that's not an issue for him at all.
Yeah, you could do that. And then you bring in Precious with like 9 to go in the second. He plays 4 or 5 minutes. Hart comes back in.
Yeah.
Hart comes back in for the last 4 of the second. Yeah, you could do that. And then you just make sure that you never have Mitch and Precious together.
I completely agree with that. That's a death knell. I mean,
and then if Hartenstein gets into foul trouble, maybe you just have to go Burks.
Or the nice thing about Precious is you could slot him at the 5 if
true.
Yeah, you know,
true, right.
Let me say this. I said it before last series. I'll say it again. I think Precious Achiuwa is going to have an impact on the series. Like there's no way, for all the reasons you said. I'm not going to repeat them. Okay. With apologies to Ben Shepherd and Isaiah Jackson, we're going to end the draft here. I don't think anybody cares. It would be Ben Shepherd next.
It would be Ben Shepherd.
Yeah. All right. This was
what it's worth. For what it's worth, just throwing it out there. I had Ben Shepherd above Alec Burks on my list.
Look, I'm trying to manifest it. There's something fitting about if Alec Burks had. You want to talk about the Miles Turner game? Imagine we got an Alec Burks game in the series. How do you like them apples? It's possible.
Man, the story off of that game.
I would probably just be drunk if we saw that. Okay, let us read our picks. I will go first. From the top, Jaylen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Aaron Nesmith, not Nesmith, Nesmith. Thank you to the person who corrected me on that one. TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, Alec Burks. That's a motley crew. Your turn.
I did not write down who I picked.
I'll read Fred's team. Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Isaiah Hartenstein, Miles Turner, Mitch Robinson. You drafted all big guys. This is so funny. And I drafted all guards. Andrew Nembhard, Deuce McBride, Precious Achiuwa. You drafted literally every big.
Guess what? I've been around Tibbs a lot.
It's rubbing off.
Yep. Apparently.
That is phenomenal. This was good. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for hanging around. I know you had it's been a rough day for you, and I know you had practice earlier today. Anything before we get out of here? What do you want to make a prediction?
Sure. I picked Knicks in 6 on my pod. So I'll go Knicks in 6. I think they should win this series. They have the best player in this series. I think they're the better two-way team. I don't think it'll be a cakewalk, but I think they should win this series. The Pacers are exhausting, though. Man, they are freaking exhausting. They just have endless amounts of energy in a similar but also very different way to the Knicks. Their energy comes out in a very different way from how the Knicks' energy comes out. But their energy is also equally as kind of uncontainable as the Knicks. I think it could be fun seeing those two contrasts of style. They play super hard, care a lot. They play really well together. It's super well coached, really unselfish team. I love watching them play. They were like my league pass team this year. They were my favorite team in the league to watch. I love watching them play. They play beautiful basketball.
I don't know. I know they have a rookie in their rotation. I know they have a couple other young guys. I don't think they'll be intimidated coming into the Garden. Like, Turner's a vet. Siakam's won a freaking championship. Halliburton, Halliburton's not going to be bothered. Obi will be juiced up. I'll be curious. Like, Obi's first minutes in game 1 those will be interesting to watch for sure. But we will react to that when they happen.
They have a lot of really competitive personalities on their team. Like
That's
TJ McConnell is crazy competitive.
Oh, he'll be fine.
Nemhart's really competitive. Halliburton's really competitive. Siakam's really competitive. Neesmith's really competitive. They have a lot of really competitive personalities. I'm with you. Like I think they'll step up. Like they did it against the Bucks. It wasn't the most beautiful series in the history of the world, but this team is a good team.
Yeah, they had a couple duds against Milwaukee, and I don't know. We'll see if they have any duds against New York. Okay, Fred Katz, you're the man. Everybody listening should go read everything Fred Katz writes over at The Athletic. He has a piece out this weekend previewing this series, as I referenced before, with Eric Neem, also of The Athletic. That is phenomenal. His podcast, which featured an episode last week featuring the one, the only, the talk about Anthony Edwards being a rising star. Monica McNutt puts Anthony Edwards to shame, and she was on Fred Katz's podcast. So go listen to that. That was in the immediate aftermath of the Philly series, right?
Yes, and we wrapped up the Philly series and we previewed the Indiana series. And Monica was awesome. It was my mother's favorite episode of the podcast.
There you go.
My mom texted me in all caps that day. Who is this woman? With a bunch of question marks. And I was like, what? She was like, Monica. Who is she? I was like, she's a color commentator for the Knicks for radio. She was like, she is incredible.
And newly engaged. So congratulations to Monica.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know that. But yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. She was great in the pod.
So yeah, go subscribe to Katz and Shoot on Patreon. You can do either the Katz tier or the Shoot tier. I am a proud member of the Shoot tier. Just throwing that out there. You will not be disappointed. And anything else, Fred, before we go?
Absolutely nothing. I think this is going to be a fun series.
Hope it's not too fun, but yes, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a fun series.
Well, look, it's not going to be as fun as the Philly series. It's not.
My heart can't take another series like that. So look, how about this? Let's start with a game one win. That would be lovely. And of course, here at Knicks Film School, there's going to be all of the usual coverage that you are accustomed to getting, starting with a post game from me. I think that is it. On behalf of Fred and Andrew Claudio, thanks for checking out another episode of the pod. And we'll be back with more fun and games before you know it.